The 2025 Atlantic hurricane season, it's almost here, and NOAA predicts it could be another busy one. Preparation is the key to staying safe, and it starts long before we start tracking a storm on satellite. One of the most critical steps is making sure that your home is ready for the season ahead. So to help us break down what homeowners need to know and beyond, we're joined now by Maria Welch. She's the owner and broker of Lifestyle Realty Group. Maria, great to have you with us on Fox Weather. I read one of your blog posts. You've got some great information for your clients. Let's start off with moving into the new season. It was a really hard year for Florida last year. So where do folks stand right now? What should they know as we move into another season?
Yes, well, thank you for having me. And truly, moving into the hurricane season, it's really important that people prepare. This isn't something that you wait until like right now to be able to do it, but you need to all year really be preparing. So number one, do you want a generator? Do you want a full house generator? Do you have the right electrical outlet for the generator, not having it outside? And roofs. Roofs are a big deal here in Florida, and making sure you have a solid roof, impact glass windows, all of that.
No question, and that's really the only way to eliminate some of the stress if there's a storm that's threatening. If you have all of these things taken care of, you can focus on putting your hurricane plan into effect. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the recovery since last season. Florida has been in this big boom last several years. That was a hard situation, though. There were a lot of new residents, and I know you wrote about this in your blog, that hadn't experienced anything like this. Where does the market in Florida stand moving into a new hurricane season?
Yes, and Florida did a great way of recovery. I mean, I think we were very fast. Our governor certainly has it down pat with how to make sure that he gets everything out there that we need. You'll always notice that the power companies, everything are lined up before it happens. However, damage is damage, and some of those homes on the West Coast were hit twice within a very short period of time, and that's really devastating. Now, I happen to live on the East Coast of Florida. So far, we have been lucky. We don't know what this year will bring, but having your home prepared for this is so important. Now, flooding is a whole nother issue. We've been talking about wind, but flooding, water's going to come where water's going to come, and you need to be prepared for that too, especially with flood insurance.
Wanted to ask you about that, Maria. Headed in the same direction. I got a buddy who had mentioned the West Coast, took on saltwater from Helene, and then a couple weeks later, freshwater flooding from Milton, and he went through that insurance process. He's still in the process of renovating his home and getting it fixed up after the storm. What do you tell your clients, maybe they're just purchasing a new home, related to homeowners insurance? Because I think a lot of hard lessons were learned last year.
You're so right. So having the proper insurance is so important. And I've been very involved in the insurance aspects for homeowners, both at a state level and on a national level. And the one thing that I find the most disturbing is that people think, they'll say, well, I'm not in a flood zone. And I'll say, well, pretty much if you have a Florida driver's license, you're in a flood zone. And X is a flood zone. And I highly recommend that people get that extra insurance. Now, it gets very complicated here in Florida with our insurance. That's all a subject for another telecast. But with the flood insurance, getting, if you happen to have to be with our state insurer, everyone has to pay for flood insurance, even if you're in an X zone. Mm-hmm. That's the very least zone that you would for risk, and it's the least expensive, same coverage, $250,000 coverage and $100,000 for belongings. But the best thing you can do is get that insurance, because water doesn't stop at a certain area. There may be lines drawn, maps drawn, whatever, but water never says, I can't go there. So the best advice I give my buyers when they're coming in, especially if they're new to Florida, please get flood insurance. Yeah. And for your homeowners insurance, make sure that you have absolutely reviewed the coverage, because when you do have a storm and you have to do replacement, it gets very, very expensive. And if you don't have the right coverage, you're going to be devastated when the time comes that you have to do these
No
repairs.
question. Yeah, and I love how you said that. Well said. If it says Sunshine State on the license, prepare as if you're in a flood zone. I lived in Tampa. I was in flood zone X, as you were describing, and I got the flood insurance just to be safe because we know how impactful these storms can be. Maria Wells with Lifestyle Realty Group, some great tips ahead of the season. Thanks for joining us on Fox Weather.